Steinberg Cubase 12 Pro. We start lesson 23. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so as not to miss new videos. And we start lesson 23. Event handles. Audio events have a fade-in and a fade-out handle, as well as a volume handle. These handles provide a quick way to change the fade length or the volume of events in the project window. Event handles become visible if you point the mouse at an event or if you select events. Note: to show event handles and fade curves permanently, that is, not only when you point at events, activate Show Event Volume Curves always in the Preferences dialog, Event Display, Audio page. In the upper left and right corners, you find triangular fade handles that allow you to change the fade-in or fade-out length. The square handle at the top, in the middle, allows you to change the volume. To change the fade-in length, drag the fade handle in the upper left to the right or to the left. To change the fade-out length, drag the fade handle in the upper right to the left or to the right. To change the volume, drag the volume handle in the top middle up or down. Fade and volume changes are reflected in the event waveform and on the info line. Note: to change the event volume and the fades with the mouse wheel, activate Use Mouse Wheel for event volume and fades in the Preferences dialog, Editing, Audio page. To move the fade in endpoint, press Shift while moving the mouse wheel, and position the mouse pointer somewhere in the left half of the event. When the mouse pointer is in the right half of the event, the fade-out start point is moved. Creating and editing fades with the handles. Creating and editing fades with the Range Selection tool. Creating and editing fades with the Range Selection tool. You can create and edit event-based fades with the Range Selection tool. Using the Range Selection tool is useful if you want to create fades for multiple audio events on separate tracks. Procedure: on the project window toolbar, select the Range Selection tool. Note: if you select a range that spans multiple audio events on multiple audio tracks, you can create fades on multiple tracks. Perform one of the following actions. To create a fade-in that starts at the event start, select a range, and select Audio Fades Fade into Range Start. Note: if the range starts at the event start or earlier, the fade-in starts at the event start and ends at the range end. To create a fade-out that ends at the event end, select a range that ends at the event end, and select Audio Fades Fade Out from range end. Note: if the range ends at the event end or later, the fade-out starts at the range start and ends at the event end. To create a fade-in and a fade-out, select a range in the middle of the event, and select Audio Fades Adjust Fades to Range. Event handles. Applying default fades. Applying default fades. You can use default fades to create event-based fade-ins and fade-outs. Procedure: select one or more audio events in the project window. Perform one of the following actions. To create a fade-in, select Audio Fades Apply Standard Fade-in. To create a fade-out, select Audio Fades Apply Standard Fade-out. Result: an event-based fade of the same length and shape as the default fade is applied. Note: to change the default fade, select Audio Fades Open Fade Editors, set up the fade, and click as default. Related links. Fade dialog for event-based fades. Creating and editing fades with the Range Selection tool. Removing event-based fades. Removing event-based fades. You can remove event-based fades. Procedure: select the event with the Object Selection tool. Do one of the following. To remove a fade-in, select Audio Fades Remove Fade-in. To remove a fade-out, select Audio Fades Remove Fade-out. To remove a fade-in and a fade-out, select Audio Fades Remove Fades. Applying default fades. Fade dialog for event-based fades. Fade dialog for event-based fades. The Fade dialog for event-based fades allows you to set up the selected event-based fades. To open the dialog for event-based fades, create a fade for one or more audio events, select the events, and select Audio Fades Open Fade Editors. Note: if you select several events, you can adjust the fade curves for all selected events at the same time. This is useful if you want to apply the same type of fade into more than one event. For example, the following options are available. Presets pop-up menu allows you to set up presets for fade-in or fade-out curves. To apply a saved preset, select it from the pop-up menu. To remove a saved preset, select it from the pop-up menu and click Remove. Curve type buttons. Apply a spline interpolation, a damped spline interpolation, or a linear interpolation to the curve. Restore. Click this button to cancel any changes you have made since opening the dialog. Fade display. Shows the shape of the fade curve. The darker waveform displays the result, whereas the current waveform is displayed in a lighter shade. To add points, click the curve. To change the curve shape, click and drag existing points. To remove a point from the curve, drag it outside the display. Curve shape buttons give you quick access to some common curve shapes. Length field allows you to enter fade lengths numerically. The format of the values displayed here is determined by the time display on the transport panel. If you activate Apply Length, the value entered in the Fade Length Value field is used when clicking Apply or OK. If you set the current fade as the default fade, the length value is included as part of the default settings. As default. Saves the current settings as the default fade. Apply. Applies the current fade settings to the selected events. Removing event-based fades. Creating clip-based fades. Creating clip-based fades. You can create and edit clip-based fade-ins and fade-outs using direct offline processing. These fades are applied to the audio clip. Events that refer to the same clip receive the same fades. Procedure. In the project window, select one or more audio events or a range for which you want to create a fade. The length of your selection determines the length of the fade area. Perform one of the following actions. To create a fade-in, select Audio Processes Fade-In. To create a fade-out, select Audio Processes Fade-Out. In the direct offline processing window, click the curve type buttons to specify a fade curve, or click and drag with the mouse to draw in a curve in the curve display. Optional, activate Audition to hear the effect of the specified fade on the selected audio event. Result. The fade is applied to the audio. You can remove or modify the fades at any time using the direct offline processing window. Related links. Direct offline processing. Fade-in/fade-out. On processing shared clips. Fade dialog for event-based fades. On processing shared clips. On processing shared clips. If several events refer to the same audio clip, this clip is a shared clip. If you edit one of the events that refer to a shared clip, you can decide if you want to apply the processing to all events referring to this clip. Continue. Click Continue to apply the processing to all events that refer to the audio clip. New version. Click New version to create a separate, new version of the audio clip for the selected event. Creating clip-based fades. Crossfades. Crossfades. Crossfades allow you to create smooth transitions for consecutive audio events on the same track. Crossfades are always event-based. You can only create crossfades if the consecutive events or their respective clips overlap. If the audio events overlap, a crossfade of the default shape, linear, symmetric, is applied in the overlapping area. Note: you can edit the default crossfade length and shape in the crossfade editor. If the respective audio clips overlap, the two events are resized so that they overlap, and a crossfade of the default length and shape is applied in the overlapping area. If neither the audio events nor the clips overlap, a crossfade cannot be created. Related links. Crossfade editor. On processing shared clips. Creating crossfades. Creating crossfades. You can create crossfades between two consecutive audio events. Procedure. Perform one of the following actions. To create a crossfade between two events, select the Object Selection tool, and select two consecutive audio events. To create a crossfade to a selected range between two events, select the Range Selection tool, and select a range covering the area where you want to apply a crossfade. Select Audio Fades Crossfade or use the key Command X. Result. The crossfade is applied. Crossfades. Changing the crossfade length. Changing the crossfade length. You can change the length of a crossfade. Procedure. Select the Range Selection tool. Select a range between two events that covers the length of the crossfade you want to apply. Select Audio Fades Adjust Fades to Range. Result. The crossfade length is adjusted to the selected range. Creating crossfades. Crossfade editor. Crossfade editor. The crossfade editor allows you to edit crossfades. It shows a fade display of the selected audio and the fade curves, in conjunction with fade-in and fade-out curve settings and common settings. To open the crossfade editor, select one or both crossfade events, and select Audio Fades a Crossfade or double-click the crossfade zone. Note: you can activate a simplified crossfade editor in the Preferences dialog. Select Editing Audio, and activate the Simple Crossfade Editor option. Advanced Crossfade Editor. Simplified Crossfade Editor. Curve Type Buttons. Determine whether the corresponding fade curve uses spline interpolation, damped spline interpolation, or linear interpolation. Curve Shape Buttons. Give you quick access to some common curve shapes. Fade Curve Displays. Show the shape of the fade-out and fade-in curve, respectively. To add points, click a curve. To change the fade shape, click and drag existing points. To remove a point, drag a point outside the display. Length. Specifies the length of the crossfade area. Overlap. Defines the position of the splice point in the crossfade area. Volume. Changes the volume of the crossfade events. This is the same as using the volume handles in the event display. Nudge. Nudges the fade area or the audio in the desired direction. Nudge range. Specifies the range that is moved when using nudge. Nudge modes. Determines what is moved when you use nudge. To move the audio, activate nudge, move audio. To move the fade, activate nudge, move fade. Chaining mode. Determines how the audio to the right of the crossfade on the track behaves when you move the crossfade for an event. To move all the following events on the track, activate until end. To move all the following events on the track up to the next gap, activate until gap. To move none of the following events on the track, activate none. Note: the behavior depends on whether the next audio event on the track follows seamlessly or with a gap. Splice point offset. The dotted vertical line in the fade-in and fade-out curves marks the splice point. If you work with asymmetric crossfades, you can set a splice point offset. This means that the splice points for the fade-in and the fade-out event are different. Symmetric fades. Activate this to link the editing controls of the fade-out and fade-in curves. This allows you to use the fade-out or fade-in controls to move both fade curves symmetrically. Presets. Click Save Preset on the Presets pop-up menu to store the crossfade settings so that you can apply them to other events. To remove a preset, select it on the pop-up menu and click Remove Preset. Default buttons. Click as default to store the current settings as default. Default settings are used whenever you create new crossfades. Click Recall Default to apply the curves and settings of the default crossfade. Equal gain. Adjusts the fade curves so that the summed fade-in and fade-out amplitudes are the same all along the crossfade region. This can be beneficial for short crossfades. Equal power. Adjusts the fade curve so that the energy, power, of the crossfade is constant all along the crossfade region. Equal power curves have only one editable curve point. You cannot change the curve shape if this mode is selected. Auto Zoom. Automatically zooms and centers the display on the current crossfade when you resize it. This also works when you select the next crossfade using Select Crossfade. Auto Scroll. Scrolls the crossfade display during playback, so that the position cursor is always visible. This only applies when using the transport panel, and it works like the corresponding function in the project window. Zoom to fade. Zooms and centers the display on the selected crossfade area. Volume. Allows you to set the audition level. Pre-roll and post-roll. To start playback before the fade area, activate Use Pre-roll. To stop playback after the fade area, activate Use Post-roll. To adjust the pre-roll time, use the pre-roll amount value field. To adjust the post-roll time, use the post-roll amount value field. Audition buttons. To audition the fade-out part of the crossfade, click Play Fade Out. To audition the whole crossfade, click Play Crossfade. To audition the fade-in part of the crossfade, click Play Fade In. You can set up key commands for this in the Key Commands dialog. Select Crossfade buttons. Allow you to select the previous /next crossfade area, provided that the current track contains more than one crossfade. Project selection follows fade. If this option is activated, selecting another crossfade automatically changes the event selection in the project window. Related links. Moving the crossfade area with the nudge buttons. Moving the crossfade area with the overlap controls. Resizing the crossfade area. Key commands. Event handles. Auto scroll settings menu. Changing the crossfade length. Moving the crossfade area. Moving the crossfade area. You can edit crossfades by moving the crossfade area, that is, the overlapping area between two audio events or clips. In the crossfade editor, you have the following options to move the crossfade area. You can use the overlap controls to determine how much of the fade out and how much of the fade in event is included in the crossfade area. You can use the nudge buttons in Move Fade mode to move the crossfade area. The audio events or clips keep their positions. You can use the nudge buttons in Move Audio mode to move the audio of the fade in event. The size of the crossfade area is kept. Crossfade editor. Moving the crossfade area with the overlap controls. Moving the crossfade area with the overlap controls. The overlap controls allow you to determine how much of the fade out and how much of the fade in event are included in the crossfade area. By moving the overlap controls, you move the overlapping area between two audio events or clips. The audio events or clips keep their positions. If you activate the symmetric fades option, the splice point for the fade out and the fade in is initially situated in the center of the crossfade. If you move the overlap control for the fade in, the fade out control moves accordingly. If you deactivate the symmetric fades option, you can move the overlap controls separately to set up different overlap values for the fade in and fade out curves. This is indicated in the splice point offset field. Moving the crossfade area. Moving the crossfade area with the nudge buttons. Moving the crossfade area with the nudge buttons. You can use the nudge buttons in Move Fade mode to move the crossfade area. You can use the nudge buttons in Move Audio mode to move the audio of the fade in event. Each time you click nudge, the crossfade area or audio clip is moved in the corresponding direction by the amount specified on the nudge range pop-up menu. To move the fade area, activate Move Fade in the nudge mode section. To move the audio clip, activate Move Audio in the nudge mode section. If you activate symmetric fades with the nudge mode set to move fade, the fade out area and the fade in area are moved by the same amount. You can also move the fade by using the middle handle of the fade out or the fade in curve. If you activate symmetric fades with the nudge mode set to move audio, the nudge buttons in the fade in display move the audio event. You can also move the audio by clicking the fade in event and dragging with the hand symbol that appears. Note: you cannot move the audio of the fade out event. Moving the crossfade area with the overlap controls. Resizing the crossfade area. Resizing the crossfade area. You can edit crossfades by resizing the crossfade area, that is, the overlapping area between two audio events or clips. In the crossfade editor, you have the following options to resize the crossfade area. You can use the length controls to resize the crossfade areas between two audio events or clips without moving the splice points. You can use the fade in curve and fade out curve handles to resize the crossfade area between two audio events or clips and move the splice points at the same time. Important. To be able to resize a crossfade, it must be possible to resize the corresponding event. If the fade out event already plays its audio clip to the end, its end point cannot be moved any further to the right. Moving the crossfade area with the nudge buttons. Changing the crossfade length without moving the splice points. Changing the crossfade length without moving the splice points. You can resize the crossfade area between two audio events or clips without moving the splice points. To resize the crossfade area, use the length controls or the length fields. You can also resize the crossfade area by clicking and dragging the length handles for the fade out and the fade in curve in the crossfade display. If you activate symmetric fades, the fade out and the fade in lengths are changed by the same amount. If you deactivate symmetric fades, you can use the upper length controls to change the length of the fade out curve and the lower controls to change the length of the fade in curve. Resizing the crossfade area. Changing the crossfade length and moving the splice points. Changing the crossfade length and moving the splice points. You can resize the crossfade area between two audio events or clips and move the splice points at the same time. To resize the crossfade area with the splice points, drag the right handle of the fade out curve to the left or drag the left handle of the fade in curve to the right. If symmetric fades is activated, the length and the splice points of both the fade out curve and the fade in curve are changed. If symmetric fades is deactivated, the right handle of the fade out curve changes the length and the splice point of the fade out curve, and the left handle of the fade in curve changes the length and the splice point of the fade in curve. Changing the crossfade length without moving the splice points. Removing crossfades.